So I'd very much like to move on now to our second speaker, Jordan Brompton, the co-founder of myenergi. Jordan, absolutely delighted to have you join us here this afternoon. I see in the last few weeks that you've been looking to recruit a number of IT people over at myenergi. So presumably you are feeling confident about the growth of the sector and therefore employment opportunities at myenergi. What's your feeling for the sector at the moment?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously when COVID hit, we had a bit of a wobble because we was on such a huge growth curve. And it really did. We thought, oh my goodness, because we're putting all this money into innovation, into recruitment. Do we need to hold off? So we monitored to see how the market was. But luckily, we managed to keep our production moving because we could keep social distance. And because we supply abroad, we managed to keep products going out the door, which kept cash coming in. So we made the executive decision to continue with our steep growth plans. And we have been on a huge recruitment drive. We've taken on 10 recently in our production area because we've just expanded our warehouse and facility. We've actually identified another 40 roles that we need within the next 6 months to a year across the whole business. So we are really going for it. We feel like it would be a shame to sort of hold back on such an exciting time with the industry and the momentum that we've built. So yeah, positive things from our end.
Exciting times. Thanks very much indeed. Of those 40 roles, are you able to disclose the sort of areas that you're looking to recruit in? Are there any areas that are particularly tricky that you're finding it difficult to attract people into? Are there any areas that are less tricky that you might look for people in?
Yeah, I mean, so we don't really have much trouble finding sort of production roles and things like that. Where we have the difficulty is finding the electrical engineers, the developers, anybody really within the innovation space. Firmware developers, software developers are really just difficult to come by, especially David mentioned with us being geographically placed in the middle of the Lincolnshire Wolds. We're not the most usual place that you would come to work. All the talent's sort of taken up in the cities. So we're on a huge recruitment drive for the R&D team, but we're also expanding marketing, HR, the finance team, literally, because we're a small team, you see. We're only 4 years old as a business, and there was 6 of us to start with. There's now 70 of us, but we need 120 odd staff by this time next year. So it's across the whole company.
It sounds like, to return to one of my earlier questions to David, you might have some opportunities from people who've perhaps had a tricky time in other sectors, maybe have been furloughed or lost their jobs. So it's exciting news indeed, potentially, for you and for people who may come to work with you shortly. So you mentioned that it was a slightly unnerving time at the beginning of the recent crisis. I know technically myenergi is still an SME.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like it requires some kind of courage and mental strength and fortitude to keep marching on whilst the world is staying around you?
Just a little bit, yeah. I mean, you could just completely hold back and wait and see what happens, but as mentioned previously, we'd gained such traction, so it'd feel like such a shame to do that, especially because we are one of the smaller players in the market. It would be a shame to lose, the edge that we've got with our customers and with the installers that we've got in the UK, and all the plans that we've got for development. So it took a lot of courage from the team, if I'm honest, to just say, no, let's not hold back. Let's fully crack on with all of our innovation plans. And let's continue to recruit during this time, because we see it, especially in our area, being in a poorer area of the UK, the unemployment rate is increased. I mean, it's record numbers. I speak to the job office quite often, and they've never seen anything like it. So we try and encourage people to get educated within the sector. We try and encourage young talent, to start looking at the space. We just try to educate and get people excited about the sector as much as possible, because obviously we all live, eat, sleep and breathe it and love it, but there's still a huge amount of people out there that have no idea that this is even coming. So, and that we might be missing out on huge pools of talent there, so we try and, as a company, try to make it very friendly and approachable and educational.
Do you think then that EV, I mean, it's a really interesting point. Do you think that the EV sector is still in its own bubble and maybe needs to reach out to the wider community with some educational campaigns to bring some wider awareness of what the sector is all about?
I think that would absolutely make sense. And I think it's fair to say, because it's definitely coming out of that bubble. Of course it is, because we're seeing the year-on-year growth. But as, you know, somebody that talks to every different kind of industry and every different kind of person, there's still so many people that just have no clue about electric vehicles, even though they're becoming, you know, they're popping up on our TV now and on adverts. I think there's still a hell of a long way to go. And if people really understood the growth of the market, I think they'd be a lot more inclined to get educated and potentially look at getting in the space, making the switch.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a question coming in from Andy Tonks, who perhaps might be a good candidate for you to employ. He has previously worked as a CCO and VP in the automotive, industrial, and aerospace sectors, and he's asking your advice on projecting across functional skills and experience into the EV and clean energy segment to secure a new role. It sounds like he may already have it covered off, but what would you say to people coming in from those wider sectors, maybe traditional automotive or aerospace? I mean, I'm sure there are some people in aerospace looking to come across to the EV space at the moment.
I mean, obviously it depends which sort of area that they want to be in. I'm in smart home energy and EV charging in the domestic space. So I guess it's really like what interests them. And I'd say use LinkedIn as a tool. That has been my biggest thing that I've used. I've just, you know, I would literally stalk anybody. If I wanted a job, I would be messaging them and saying, look, I'm really interested. Just reaching out to the network, because our particular industry is so active online. And I think just if you really want it and there's a particular area that you're interested in, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I'm saying that from my side, because from my experience, which is EV charging and smart home energy management. So
yeah,
reach out to the recruiters and reach out to David.
There's another question which I won't ask you, but it's a similar kind of theme. Someone who seems like they've got great transferable skills coming from the digital software sector, and looking to reach out to the EV space. I mean, maybe there's a kind of a lack of openness across the sector as discussed. Maybe we need to do some more work to reach out to people.
Maybe. I mean, if they reached out to me, they would get snapped up in a heartbeat. But it depends, you know, like, because we just seem to be fighting for these pools of people all the time, the developers, the coders, the firmware developers, the electrical engineers. But I guess we might, as mentioned, have more difficulty because of where we're geographically placed. But because of COVID, we might have had a little bit of a blinkered view on that everybody has to be under one roof. And we're trying to adapt as a company now to work in, obviously we've had to work remotely, our actual team, but now taking on more and more remote roles as well and managing different projects from Lincolnshire, but on the internet as well. So it might go more digital.
Well, this chap's called Simon Houghton. I think I probably should introduce you to him.
Yeah.
Probably looks like a great potential candidate. So someone's asking, what do you think the perceived barriers are to working in the EV sector, and how could people overcome those perceived barriers?
Maybe the things that we just spoke about, thinking that it's difficult, it's a difficult market to get into. But I think, again, I'll go back to using LinkedIn. Just type in some sort of, like, have a look on Google, have a look at the companies that are making a lot of noise in the space in a particular area that you're interested in, and then literally type in the company's name in LinkedIn and find the people that work there and just get that foot in the door to try and make those first steps. I think it's just about engaging with people and talking to people to eliminate that fear of making the switch, and just doing your research, a lot of reading.